Now, hey guys, this is my TV show. Now, if you want to be a part of the AOs, the AO King, the AOs, I switch it to the AOs, and you can be a part of this channel. So, in this video, what we will be doing, we will be talking about the similarities from Snow White to Adam and Eve. Even though it's a cartoon, it's like not. They use some creation of proprietors, except it was a witch that gave her the apple so she could eat it, so she could die and get her beauty, so she can transform her beauty into her, so she can look very much younger than what she actually is. Even though you could look young by genetics, but provably it showed that she did not look young by genetics. And I will show pictures and covers of what's similar and talk about it at the same time. So was the point I was trying to get off this video is obviously I had to stop my camera to show the picture of the same picture that you're seeing right now of Snow White and stuff. So what I was trying to say was similar by you could tell by watching this whole film is a clue in that it didn't have of the dingo, the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. The only thing it didn't have that was similar was it didn't have no witch that showed them the apple. It was the evil dude. I'm not saying his name or nothing, obviously. But when you watch this story, you clearly can see that some parts was take off this crazy how some of these Disney stories like of different events like stories like a whole bunch of stories. Some of these stories of Disney actually did been took and upon their own hands of generations to generations of stories to be captured to on TV live stream movies and like cartoons that we know now, like Princess and the Frog, all these type of stuff. Like some of these events of stories been taken and been flipped to be programmed, but I think it was for good reasons. But they took and made it big. Honestly, as a human being, I'm not gonna judge Disney about making a story similar, but I know for sure that Disney had a good heart when they try to transform the scene. Because if you see the Adam and Eve and they transform the Adam and Eve, the actual story what happened onto the Disney film, it would not look right. Kids, parents would be worried. They would not want their kids to even have no longest on watching Disney or even paying attention to this. They'd probably be like pay attention to the stories like any story. But at the same time, I knew for sure the stories was similar because when you clearly watch these stories, you could tell that some of the parts they used it from that. Because number one, I'm gonna name one they could have. One, they had an apple. But except in the story up, now I'm gonna get to number two. So, except they did have an apple in the Snow White, and they originally did have an apple in the Adam and Eve story. So, if you really watch like comparisons of this typical story that I'm trying to explain, now you can look up this stuff yourself and watch the similarities that I seen. But the things that was missing that I definitely seen was the prince I'm gonna say of Adam and Eve, the thing that they had, they did that wasn't similar to the story of Snow White was the thing is they was together, Adam and Eve. God made them together originally. He made them to be together. First Adam wasn't even with Eve because God didn't create woman at first. He created man at first. Then he got out of her rib. Adam, no, Eve came from Adam rib. God pulled upon his rib to give him a wife, basically, so he should live with her. Thing that they didn't really have in common, Adam and Eve, about the Snow White story, because Snow White and the prince, they didn't meet until he kissed her. At first, she didn't even know who the prince was. Really, you could tell she probably heard of him or something, whatever. But then the dwarfs, her little dwarfs, they sent the prince there to awaken her so he can kiss her. But I heard in the original film they kissed her without consent, but she still married him anyway. But we will get back to that in another video. So, what's y'all take on the similarities? Because Adam and Eve, they was together. They was together. But the prince and Snow White, they was separate. They were separate. So you can tell by clearly watching the base of both of these stories, they both have similarities, but you will actually not know what their events of how they created the story into different realities of their knowings that we just don't know about. So honestly, I feel like Disney didn't have a bad heart. Like when they created this, they probably like, you know what, let's make something positive. But at the same time, I don't know them, so I'm not going to say what their heart is or what intent to them creating this type of story for children to watch. But I don't know, honestly. Because when I watch it, I don't really know Disney full attention of creating this film that's similar to Adam and Eve and to Snow White. Because if you watch it clearly, you can see the similarities. Except Snow White was playing a more main role, so it's like that's why, because the person didn't come along tell, but Adam and Eve was been stuck together. They wasn't been stuck together purposely. What I mean, God created her obviously second. He created her second, so she was created second. And then it's some stuff that's similar. You need to really watch back onto this story and see the similarities. Except, like with the witch, I'm gonna name the witch. Now, except when who gave them the apple originally, Snow White. They said the witch gave her an apple. But on the Adam and Eve story, the snake gave her the apple, which is the evil dude that I'm not saying name because he's not worth it even mention. Honestly, he's not worth it even mention in my time because I got a better time to be worrying about him to give him any power anyway. So, when you clearly watch this film of really doing of watching it, the witch gave him the apple. So the witch was pretending had a role of playing as the snake to give Snow White the apple. Snow White, hear me? Snow White. The witch was giving Snow White the apple. The witch. But except in the Adam and Eve story, the snake gave them the apple. You see the similarities? You see? Clearly, if you didn't hear me loud enough, what I'm trying to say is, in separate stories of the Disney story, a set that was different on there, the witch was basically portrayed as the snake that gave Snow White the apple. But in the original thing that they got, I feel like they got similarity to that is that the snake gave them the apple. But except Adam didn't want to bid it, but then he decided to go along with she bid it. She said, I don't think he really cared, but he did. God did care. But yeah, tell me about what y'all think about this. Because when I'm honestly watching this story, people might say, oh, you thinking it's not similar. But to me, it's just a story, and people recover stories all the time for many years. If some of these stories you watching have been seen by different events of their advantage of what they seen that they can pull up and then use it on camera in films and cartoons. Like even what I knew is even about the Betty Boop. About the Betty Boop. Y'all don't even know that Betty Boop was originally was a black girl. She made sounds like that, squeaky sounds. She always sang like that dance. Her name was Baby Esther, I heard. But I don't really know. I think y'all should check out the story. I'll mention that in a new video. Let's get back to Snow White now. So, when I'm watching this story, I can tell that some of these stories that Disney create, it evolved of different events of stories from the 18th century. But except with the Betty Boop, you can't really compare that because their story was probably in the 90s, the 1950s, around those time or those areas. But yeah, I will mention some of these stories definitely in my next video, so you should make sure you watch. I mentioned about the Betty Boop. I'm gonna talk about the all that stuff. So you will see that. Guys, make sure you like and subscribe. And I've been doing this for a long time, but I just didn't drop some of these videos. But this is my video that I'm dropping now. Y'all probably gonna see me just do it now. But yeah, tell me what similarities that you have from it too. You could react to this video, and I want you to send this video. I'm gonna show you how I want y'all to send this video to. This video to her, because I always watch her videos. You see the one with the black hair, yeah. But at the same time, tell me what y'all pick up some similarities between both of the stories. And I want to say love y'all, bye y'all.